Welcome to Beyond the Veil with Norman Meredith.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Beyond the Veil. I apologize for the slight delay in between shows. We had the hurricane come through here. My producer was on vacation for a week, and also was just busy with work with my job because some of you may not know it, but I work in EMS as an EMT, so I was a little bit tired and dragged out from some of the calls we're working related to the storm. So now I'm back, and we're going to talk tonight about an urban legend, and this is up the alley of what I like to talk about when it comes to aliens: Venusian Thor. Now, back in the 1960s, there were a lot of people out west around California, Oregon, Nevada, stuff talking about encounters with Venusians, people from Venus. And they were humanoids. They looked like us. They could walk among us, pass like us. If you ever watched Star Wars, you see the Corellian. Corellian just looked like an Earthling, They were human-like, human-looking. And this is what Venusian Thor is about. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. The legend of Venusian Thor has captivated the imagination of ufologists and alien enthusiasts since the late 1950s. According to the tale, Valiant Thor was a humanoid extraterrestrial from the planet Venus who arrived on Earth with a mission to share advanced technology, promote messages of peace, love, and unity, and help humanity avoid self-destruction. Now that sounds like the typical messages that we were being told that the people from Venus were bringing about peace, love, and hope, stuff like that, and unity. That was their typical messages. And accordingly, this gentleman named Thor came to Earth and wound up staying in the Pentagon for many years. He had an apartment there. He was guarded by members of the military, and he was sharing technology from medicine to energy to space travel. But as you know how our government goes, it was all swept under the rug, supposedly, because we're not seeing it right now. We don't have cars like the Jetsons, if you've ever seen that cartoon. We don't have medical beds that heal you. We don't have none of this so-called technology that has been repressed, as some people in the dark corners of the web and conspiracy theorists say exist. And I'm not saying it don't exist, because there's a lot of technology that's out there that has been suppressed. All right, let's go on about the story. The primary and only source of this astonishing story is a book published in 1967 called Stranger at the Pentagon by Frank E. Strange, a Christian evangelical, I'm probably saying it wrong, minister, ufologist, author, and founder of the National Investigations Committee on Unidentified Flying Objects. That's a mouthful. So just who was Valiant Thor? Alien, actor, urban legend, or elaborate hoax? Where is he alleged to have come from? Did he work with America's high-ranking government officials? And are supposed photographs him real or fake? Let's take a trip back to the 1950s to shed light on one of the strangest stories in the annals of UFO and alien folklore, the tale of Valiant Thor. Now, first contact. According to the Stranger at the Pentagon, Valiant Thor, an alien from Venus described as an inhumanly handsome man, landed his spacecraft, supposedly named Victory 1, near the town of Alexandria in Virginia, a city on the Potomac River, a stone's throw from Washington, D.C. One version of the story said that he, along with two traveling companions, were met by two policemen who escorted him to the Pentagon. Another says that he politely requested to speak to President Dwight D. Eisenhower. It's interesting. In the 1950s, there was a movie called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Interesting. Coincidental? Maybe. Now, why did Valiant Thor come to Earth? Well, leaving aside for a moment the perplexing story of Thor, Venus, somewhere between 25 and 160 million miles from Earth, depending on the orbital cycle, is absolutely entirely inhospitable. The mean temperature is over 460 degrees Celsius, approaching almost 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and has the densest atmosphere of all planets in the solar system. This atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, and the entire planet is covered in a thick cloud of sulfuric acid. But as Stranger's story goes, that's where Valiant Thor and his interstellar delegation came from. Now, Thor's purpose, as described by Strangers, also claimed to have almost direct contact with this visitor from another planet, was to offer advanced technology, to promote peace and a high level of spiritual enlightenment, and to warn against the dangers of nuclear weapons, poverty, and environmental destruction. Now, you remember a couple episodes back, we talked about Dwight D. Eisenhower meeting with aliens out in Palm Springs at the Air Force Base there. I think it was Vandenberg I mentioned, that he had an encounter with aliens and turned them down. Now, it's coincidental that he's meeting with a Venetian. And, the Venetians come here with speaking about love, peace, and unity. Now, we do know, here's some interesting facts. Russia has, in the past, and I don't know if they still do, and I haven't checked on it, had a strange affinity for Venus. Is it possible that Russia in the 1950s had their own version of a Valiant Thor that came to Russia and made contact with them about peace, love, unity, wanting to give technology and stuff? Because if you notice, for a long time in the 60s, Russia was pumping out landers onto Venus to explore the planet, which is strange because you would think they would go to Mars, but no, they were headed to Venus. Now, why would the Russians want to head to Venus unless they were trying to see if maybe a visitor that they had story was true? Now, what I'm going to say is there could be a grain of truth, and I'm going to tell you why. There could be somebody living on Venus. Now, you're going to look at me, Norman, you're crazy. 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, stop and think a minute. I'm going to say the words domed cities. It's very possible they have domed cities or underground cities. They live under the surface and have a civilization built under there and the technology to live underground. Or like I say, giant dome cities with a crystalline matrix bubble or whatever you want to call it over their cities that protects them from the harsh elements of the Venetian atmosphere. Think about that and keep it in mind, okay? Because, we talk about building cities on Mars and on the moon. And, we're talking about putting little buildings on there, little structures, habitable buildings. But eventually, we might wind up building domes. I mean, we build domes for football stadiums. So imagine building that up on 1,000 times scale or bigger. All right, moving on. In the book, Thor claimed his race had been monitoring Earth for hundreds of years, had become increasingly concerned with the state of the planet, hence his visit. He is said to have brought messages of hope, urging the people to work together for the common good. He also advocated for the move to clean energy sources and is supposed to have brought with him advancements in medicine, transportation, energy production that were centuries ahead of the 1950s sciences. Now remember, in the 1950s, both the United States and Russia were playing with nuclear weapons to see who could make the bigger and better bombs. So we were both exploding bombs in the desert in Siberia to see who could make better weapons to destroy the other guy. So we were so in other words, we're sending out little nuclear flares into the universe So if, for the aliens out there to say, hey, we're here, we're idiots. All right, more specifically, Strange wrote about Thor's composite energy device, which was a zero-carbon source of producing energy, and a replicator which was said to be able to precisely replicate any material without the need for extraction or mining. Replicators, where did we heard about replicators before? Does Star Trek come to mind? They had food replicators. You go up there, you order dinner, you get a steak dinner with potatoes and everything else because it was replicated from a base material. Now, I don't know how far that went, but that's where the first replicators came from. And I would be surprised that there was further on in other movies that you'll find we talk about nano devices that build things from nothing or almost nothing. You provide a block material and they can build you anything from that block material and of different sources because they're changing the atoms around. Okay, moving on. Or did Valiant Thor, an alleged alien from another world, truly accomplish the feats described in the book, which is said to bear a strong resemblance to the classic 1951 science film, The Day the Earth Stood Still? Or did he exist solely in the creative imagination of Frankie Strange? Let's try and find some evidence. Now, you remember, if you ever watch the original black and white Day the Earth Stood Still, the character's name was Cocteau, and he brought a device so the president could see about life on other planets. Okay? And unfortunately, a trigger-happy GI shot it out of his hand, shot him, and just sort of blew the whole deal. If you ever get a chance, find the black and white edition of The Day the Earth Stood Still, or find it on YouTube and watch it. Do not watch the modern version. Yes, I like the actor in it, but it sucks. The original is better. All right, the legend of Venetian Thor goes on. There are suggestions in the popular narrative that official documentation and signed witness statements, including some from people describing as high-ranking government officials, exist pertaining to Valiant Thor's visit, but as yet they have never been made public or verified. That's normal. The most commonly told version of the story was that Thor lived in the basement of the Pentagon for 3 years and took regular meetings with President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon and senior members of the armed forces. He's also alleged to have met with a number of scientists and religious leaders, appeared at the United Nations headquarters in New York City, and even attended a church in Alexandria, where he preached messages of love and peace. Then there's also the alleged to be the one or more audio recordings, as well as a number of published photographs reporting to be of Valiant Thor, but without any concrete evidence to corroborate them. Indeed, the images are widely believed to be forgeries or simply those of normal men who had no idea the images were being misrepresented as extraterrestrials from Venus. To date, there's no substance proof that Valiant Thor existed or had interactions with anyone at any level of the United States government or elsewhere. Despite the lack of physical evidence, Valiant Thor from Venus has become an iconic figure within the many UFO enthusiast communities. Supporters of the story argue the secrecy of the government operation and the mysterious nature of his visit are consistent with other alleged extraterrestrial encounters. Skeptics, however, dismiss the tale of nothing more than a fantastical fabrication. The lack of any tangible proof, such as photographs or official documents, fuels ongoing debate about the authenticity of Strange's claims. All right, speaking of, when it comes to the government and they don't want you to know something, they're going to bury it. One way or the other. They'll literally bury it, which means get rid of the evidence, get rid of the people, or figuratively bury it and tell the people NDAs, threat of jail, and everything else. But it's just amazing that somebody did create the movie the day the earth stood still around this time. It was like somebody was prepping us, but it didn't come through on the government side. They didn't allow the event to occur. And, it's interesting. I'm going to mention something here. The Venetians were talking about love, hope, prosperity, spiritual awakeness. You know what that sounds like? And don't get me wrong, but think about the hippie movement of peace and love. It wouldn't be hard for a Venetian or a few of them to start the culture of love back in the 60s. They come down, they infiltrate, and they begin the culture of love, which becomes the hippie movement. The flowers, the smoking, the spiritual enlightenment, the sharing of each other. You get where I'm going, okay? If you're my age or older, you'd understand what I'm saying about the hippie movement, okay? It is a possibility, slim to none, but slim, that maybe they did come to Earth and said, oh, okay, the government ain't helping us. We're going to try it this way and see if we can get a popular revolution going through the people. Well, it didn't work. All right. It just caused more chaos. Valiant Thor, a story for the ages. All right, going on. Valiant Thor's legend endures as a symbol of hope and cosmic benevolence, and indeed, many of these supposed messages from outer space, people coming together for common good, transiting to clean energy sources, prompting peace over hate, environmental awareness, resonate today. Despite the story's lack of evidence, the narrative also aligns with a broader themes, extraterrestrial intelligence seeking to guide humanity towards a more enlightened and harmonious future. Overall, despite being an intriguing story, the legend of Valiant Thor is currently unsupported by any credible evidence. It is widely regarded by most experts and researchers in the field of UFO and alien visitations as either a complex hoax or a work of fiction. So whether viewed as a genuine account or a bizarre yet captivating myth, the story of Valiant Thor intrigues and inspires those who ponder the mysteries of our universe and the possibility, however small, of otherworldly visitors. So think about that and digest. Now, speaking of alien visitors, accordingly, back when the Roswell crash occurred, they recovered a live alien. He was injured. They nursed him back to health. And they kept him in a secret location. I forget if it was at Wright-Patterson or eventually what was called Groom Lake, which later became Area 51. And they learned to communicate with this alien, and they exchanged information, and eventually, talking with this alien, they were able to recover and build a communication device. He was able to contact his people. And there was a project called Project Serpico. Now, Project Serpico sent 12 men. I suppose it was 12 men. And then another version says it was 10 men, 2 women, sent to the aliens' homeworld where they stayed for 11, 12 years. One died en route, and 2 to 4 stayed behind, and the rest came back and had their names changed, their identities changed, their history changed, and they just faded into existence. And that we still have contact with aliens today, both at Area 51, working behind the scenes, that we interact with aliens too on day-to-day business, and that we may actually have alien neighbors. Literally, people that came here to learn and watch. What better way to learn and watch is become part of the population. So that tall Nordic-looking couple next door with the blonde hair, blue eyes, that has a slight accent, maybe they're not from Sweden. Maybe they're from upstairs, somewhere far and distant. And they're actually here to learn how we are. The best way to learn things about people is become part of the society. There's a joke that's out there about Bigfoot. Supposedly Bigfoot is a alien scientist running around naked, watching us and observing us from afar. How do you like that one? I'm going to tell you some stories about Bigfoot on the next episode. I was talking with a former Army intelligence officer, or agent, however you want to call it, and he was telling me some interesting stories about Bigfoot in Alaska. And I'll save those for the next episode. All right, but going forward, folks, I hope y'all be safe. Please pray for the folks in Tennessee and North Carolina as they're still recovering. I do ask that if you think about it and you have the time, please donate to churches and other organizations outside of FEMA to provide water, food, warm clothing, blankets, and things of that nature to help the survivors rebuild and to move on and to make it another day. And the reason I say don't give to FEMA is, unfortunately, I don't trust them. That's me personally. I think giving to churches or verified private organizations that are providing assistance is the best way to go at this time. And if you will consider doing this, I bless you for this. And we're going to get ready to sign off here from Easley, South Carolina. And I want to tell you all, thank you for being with us again. And we look forward to next week to another topic on Beyond the Veil. So signing off from Easley, this is Norman. Goodbye, folks.